I'm gonna call this story Curry Goat Surt. Now, once upon a time, I worked at a high-end retail store in Long Island. And for whatever reason, there were a lot of Caribbean people that worked there. And I talked to everybody. I talked to the stock people, the perfume ladies, the shoe people, the janitor. I talked to everybody. This one particular day, I walk in the break room and there's an older Caribbean lady sitting at one of the break tables. I tried to convince this lady that I had an authentic Caribbean accent. I thought to myself, say two lines and then reveal that I'm really a Nigerian guy. I'm just pretending. And she'd be like, "Oh, you could have fooled me." And we'd laugh and that'd be the end of it. I start my plan. I sit down next to her and she's like, "How you doing, boy?" And I'm like, "I'm alright, lady. How are you?" And she looks at me and her eyes get wide. So she's like, "Oh, where you from?" The first place that came to mind was Grenada. So I said, "I'm from Grenada." So she looks at me and she's like, "Oh yeah?" And she's like, "When the last time you been home?" And I say, "It's been about 3 years since I've been back home. I miss it so much." And she's like, "Oh yeah?" So now at this point, I'm ready to reveal my joke, right? So I'm gonna say, "Yeah, listen, I'm really not Caribbean. I'm Nigerian." Instead of that happening, she turns to the table next to her and she says, "Hey Nancy, I met somebody from Grenada." And Nancy looks over with this surprised look like she just won a lottery. So Nancy says, "Oh yeah? I've been waiting to meet somebody from Grenada for 2 years." Of all the places in the Caribbean, has been dying to meet somebody from Grenada. And here is this fool pretending to be from Grenada. So Nancy hops up from the table, sits at our table where we're sitting, and is looking at me intently. Now, I am in a mess here. They start asking me more questions. Like, "So what did you do there?" And I'm like, "I went to the beach with my friends. We watch the sunset at the beach, and we drink whatever and eat whatever." So I'm way past the point of no return here. The more we converse, the more my accent starts slipping up. I'm sounding more like a Hispanic Mario from Mario Brothers now. So the last question they asked me, something most Caribbean people would know, but I didn't answer it correctly. So they look at each other and they're like, "Oh yeah?" So at that point, I said I have to bail. So I get up and my nervousness, I'm like, "Okay, ladies, I got to get back to work. I got to go now." And they're looking at me, they're like, "Okay, you go back to work and take care of whatever you got going on." I get up and I run out of there. And while I'm running out, I can kind of hear them kind of talking about our conversation and giggling. So I'm like, "Oh man, I really messed up." The next time I saw them, I'm like, "Ladies, I was playing around with y'all. I'm really Nigerian. And I'm not from Grenada." And they're like, "Boy, we knew that from the beginning." So we laughed it off, and I felt better after that. Every time I saw them after that, and I would speak to them in passing, they would say, "Hey, Sydney, how you doing?" And I'd be like, "I'm good. I'm whatever. I'm alright." And they'd be like, "Oh yeah." So that's the time I faked having a Caribbean accent. Still in my life.